So my name is Mirgel. I'm a safari guide, former zookeeper, conservationist, and social media content creator. So to me, wildlife conservation is way more than just a job. It's my way of life. It's who I am as a person. What good is a nice car, a fancy apartment to me? My mission on Earth is to protect wildlife in the last wild places on Earth, and then also to get people excited about conservation. That's my mission. But if you zoom out on a broader scale, wildlife conservation is actually something that matters to everybody, because this planet we live on, with coral reefs, mountain ranges, forests, deserts, tundras, all these ecosystems we depend on for our lives is actually quite fragile. And in order to survive, we need the elephants, the lions, the tigers, all those ecosystems, the forests, the oceans, to survive. Without them, we cannot exist. So we depend on healthy ecosystems to survive. And ecosystems are only healthy when millions of organisms and millions of species lead lives that interlock and sustain each other. So that's why we need to protect all these different species to have healthy ecosystems that we can depend on and survive with. And at the end of the day, wildlife conservation is actually also about giving us a planet that we can live on, that we can raise future generations on, and that gives us a perspective for a nice planet to live on. And without wilderness and animals, we cannot survive. So for me, there was never like a moment that started my passion for wildlife. It was just always there. It was always a part of me. It's part of who I am. It's part of my DNA. But I grew up part of my life, or of my childhood, in Miami, and that definitely was a big factor. Growing up with alligators in my garden and snakes in my garden, that really enhanced my passion for wildlife. That was also the time where Steve Irwin was quite famous in the US, so watching him on TV as a kid, that definitely channeled my passion even more. And then I just kept reading animal books and learning more about nature, and that's how my passion grew and grew. But as far as adventures and expedition goes, it was definitely the first time I ever came to Africa, and to the wilderness of Africa, when I realized what kind of wilderness is out there, that there are so many adventures to have, so many things to see and experience. And that's when I knew this is what I want to do. I want to be out in the wild. I want to see the wildest places on Earth, and I want to see what's out there, see the animals, learn more about them, and just spend time in the last wild places on Earth. So most of my wild experiences I've had in the Okavango Delta in Botswana, which is a beautiful area in the north of Botswana, where in every flood season, huge amounts of water pour into the Kalahari and form an oasis that is over 15,000 square kilometers big. It draws in all the animals from the surrounding areas, and it basically is paradise on Earth. It's absolutely incredible. The amount of elephants you can see there has the highest population density in elephants on planet Earth. Being by a waterhole during sunsets and having elephants right next to you, or being on foot on safari, is also quite a special experience. Encountering lions on foot. I've had lions only a few meters away from me, on foot with nothing between me and them, or walking with elephants. Those are all moments that will change your life forever and will really change and shape who you are as a person, as a human being. And we just came back from a filming expedition to Sumatra from the jungle, which is a completely different environment with its own challenges, but also beautiful in its own way. We saw the last wild orangutans on Earth. We got to see amazing snake species and just see, pure and pristine jungle, which is quite rare nowadays and very special to be able to see that. So being in the wilderness for longer periods of time can be quite challenging depending on how much infrastructure you have. Obviously, if you get lucky and you can guide in the nice lodges, it's going to be less challenging than going on a filming expedition in Sumatra, for example. But for me personally, that's where I feel most at home. The wilderness is my home. That's where I love to be. It gives me energy. I draw energy from that place. And of course, sometimes, when you're on a sleep out in the bush in Africa and you just have sleeping mat and a sleeping bag and you sleep underneath the stars, it can be quite exhausting the day after. But the experiences you have there, they really give you energy. It can be challenging and it can be dangerous at times, but it's worth it, and there's nothing greater than being outdoors and out in the wilderness. It's always hard to pinpoint one highlight or one really special moment that sticks out, because there's just so many amazing moments I've been fortunate enough to be a part of. But something that's always special to me is spending time with elephants, because elephants are just incredibly intelligent and aware creatures that, when you interact with them, it always leaves you with a deep impact, and they always, in a way, they touch your soul. They're very, very special animals. And I remember a few weeks back, I had an encounter with some elephants by a waterhole as the sun was setting. And we just stopped by the waterhole and stood next to the vehicle, and the elephants just kept pouring out of the bush towards the waterhole to have a drink. And they just kept coming, and at the end of the day we spent our evening with elephants right next to us, about 40 elephants maybe, as the sun was setting over the African wilderness. And those are moments that are incredibly amazing. And also one of my personal favorites is spending time with African wild dogs, which are one of the most endangered predatory species on Earth. And they're incredibly fun to follow because they move and they hunt a lot and they're very active. And it never gets boring with them, and just following them, spending the day with them, it's quite an amazing experience. And also encountering them on foot is quite cool, because even though they're amazing predators, they're not really aggressive towards humans. So you can actually have quite interesting interactions with them on foot without being in any danger, and that's always a very unique experience. I would encourage anybody who has the chance to, I don't know, go on safari or experience wildlife, experience wild places, to go out and do it. It seems scary at first, and it can be scary in a certain way, but it's worth it. And it's experiences like that tell us where our place in this world is, and help us understand how the world works better. And especially for me as a guide, my goal is always to send my guests back home with a newfound passion for wildlife and a new view on life, basically, and send them home as conservationists. And I think that in life there's probably nothing that can shape us more than spending time out in the wilderness to reconnect with ourselves, but also reconnect with our wild side. Because what we've all kind of forgotten is that we're not just part of nature or the wilderness, but it's also part of us. The wilderness lives within us, and sometimes it's a very nice experience to reconnect with nature and find that wild side in us again. And it can be quite good for mental health as well, I think. So there's a lot of benefits to spending time in the wilderness, and I think it's something that everybody should go out and do if they have the chance. It doesn't have to be a safari. It can even be a walk in the park, just listening to the birds, listening to the wind in the trees. All that kind of stuff is just things that make us happy as humans, and I think that's something that everybody should go out and do. So my relationship with Craghoppers started when I first came to Africa, because the first ever khaki shirt I bought was from Craghoppers. And right as I put it on for the first time, I knew that this was going to be the shirt I was going to be wearing for my career, because I just fell in love immediately with the quality, fell in love with the thoughts put into the product. It's a very thought out product, and it just works great. I've spent huge amounts of hours, years in the wilderness with these shirts. We just used them in Sumatra, in the jungle. They perform perfectly. And that's one thing that's really important for me when I'm out in the wilderness, maybe even doing dangerous things, interacting with wildlife. I need to focus on what's happening, and I can't be messing around with my gear. That needs to be on point and working. That's what Craghoppers does, and that's why I love working with Craghoppers and wearing Craghoppers. And there's no other shirt I would ever want to wear in the wilderness. So for anybody who wants to go into wildlife or maybe even safari guiding, I think as long as you have a passion, you're all set. Just follow that passion, don't take no for an answer. There's always a way to figure things out and always a way to do things. So just keep at it, keep following your passion. Always, stay interested, keep learning, and just go out and do it. I think that's the biggest part. I mean, even at the start when I tried, doing what I'm doing, people would tell me that I couldn't do it or that's not going to work. But at the end of the day, you got to be happy with what you're doing. And if you have that passion, just go out and follow it. Don't take no for an answer, and just do it. There's such an interesting and wild world out there to be seen. So if you want to see it, just give it your best shot and see what happens. Yes!